It's not noon. It's 10:10 at night. But you're joining me, so that means that you're up late, maybe, or maybe wherever you're at in the world, it's early. I don't know. But you're here at No Man's Land with me, your Soderlund. And you guys, we're going to do the usual. We're going to fight the good fight with the internet, and we are going to chat and talk about crazy news headlines because boy, gee golly gosh, do I have them for you. It's been a crazy day. For those of you who joined me on social media, you know that recently I was banned for posting a dandelion recipe for natural and holistic healing, and I was frozen for about 24 hours. So I've since been released from my shackles. And of all the things I've been reported for, by the way, dandelions, probably the most non-violent one. So be it. But there's so many different places to start. I've got my notes as usual in full Virgo fashion. I have sat every time that I have a coffee break or a moment to look at my news on my phone or get a text message from someone or something comes my way. I have been able to step out of the work moment today and go, oh, I have to mention that. I have to mention that. And as you guys know, usually we do No Man's Land at noon. We did that because I was going to be a part of a network and that was the only slot available. But I'm actually going to be, as the pandemic vanishes and mask mandates lift, going back to work, as it were. And so might be moving this to the night because I really do like it to be a live show. I can always pre-record it in the daytime and, of course, putting on at night. But I like you guys joining me. I like having you guys in the chat room, sharing with me what news and things are going on where you are at. So, favor to you, C-Star was just finishing up another video. Brianna, it's a struggle here on the internet because I know you guys, all of us have been lately struggling with the solar flares, also YouTube and some algorithms glitching as we have mass media grid shutdowns. And we also are having storms. We're having crazy storms and weather, places, transformers blowing up, and energy issues. That's a real thing. So navigating that, it's okay. I am usually a night owl, so I am up late at night. So if you're joining me, let's go ahead and talk about the crazy day. And of course, there's probably going to be a lot that I missed. But first things first, anybody here from Louisiana? Louisiana? Made me and scared me. I love Louisiana. My sister lived there for, I think, 7 or 8 years almost. And anytime I had the opportunity to go and visit Louisiana food, whether it's beignets or crawfish, or I got made fun of by the family that we used to stay with because I told them that as a young girl, we used to do a hot dog in a hoe, putting a hot dog in a pantyhose, and you dangle it off the dockside, and the crawdads would get their claws stuck. Then you'd have crawdads to go eat or use as bait. In Louisiana, it is a process, it is a machine, and it is a well-oiled system. And it's a culture and really beautiful. For me in high school, learning French, I fell in love with the Cajun language, the deep folklore, religious issues that I had had growing up, and seeing some of the religious underground movements of Southern Catholic, but Southern Voodoo, really neat cultures in Louisiana. It's a space all its own, but the senator there, Senator John Kennedy, what a good name for a politician, right? Recently, now this man, he reminds me of Orville Redenbacher, like the kind of face that you'd see on a popcorn bag. He's very wrinkly and smushy, like one of those pantyhose faces that grandma kept on the side of the refrigerator. But recently, and I mean recently, just within hours today, guys, he sat down in a meeting with the CDC's director, Rochelle Walensky. She's beautiful, Rochelle, right? She's sitting there and he sits as old man and they start with a joke. They crack a joke and they're laughing. And then in true Southern charm fashion, he straightforward says, "Can you just tell me about the rules on masks? What can I go here without a mask? Can I go there without a mask?" It's like Dr. Seuss. Can I go here? Can I go there? Where, oh, where can thou not go? What is so different about the house that I have to wear a mask? And she kind of oop, ba boop, bop, beep, dances around the question. She doesn't really ever give a direct answer to his very charming and direct questions, I might add. Another very important question that he asks, and my cheeks just salivated with happiness, because here on this show, on No Man's Land, we have talked about the important phrase of gain of function research, meaning that, and yes, Tina, the contributing to pressures in your head, vestibular situations, nausea, GI issues, insomnia, major disturbances in sleep, big issues for solar flares. And we're going to have it for probably the end of May. My internet has been going out. It's really affected my work. It's affected my pretty much everything. If I send any major files halfway through, it's buffering and I don't know. So I go to sleep. I wake up thinking it's done and it's not. Just a lot of issues and sleeping and not. You guys feel me. I know from my inbox that it's a consistent thing. So it's not you. We're not just completely crazy. We're all crazy, but not in that way. So gain of function. Gain of function is when you're studying a particular virus and you are going to be weaponizing it, or the functions in which it can be used, the gain of function, profitizing it, being able to make variants of it, synthesizing it to be able to be prolonged for shipping or mass inoculation, all sorts of things that goes into vaccination research. And the direct question of, hey, Rochelle, you're the CDC director, right? Yep. Cool. Where are we doing gain of function research? And she's like, what? But like in the US or like Wuhan, China? Anywhere. Can you tell us where? And she said, well, you would probably want to direct that to Mr. Fauci. And he says, now you see, I have. And he seems to be confused. What a charming old man, Mr. John Kennedy from Louisiana. And I would agree, Fauci does seem to be confused, because even earlier today, caught lying and backpedaling on camera of the reason that he didn't once say something that he knew better not to say about is because he didn't want to send mixed signals to the public. But the direct question about gain of function and where this is being done, and the complete avoidance of an answer, then saying, okay, you should ask Fauci, and then him saying, well, I'm asking you because you're his boss in that position. So, and she didn't give an answer. And he said, well, I imagine you probably, when people call, they answer. You get your phone calls returned. And she laughed, and they laughed, and he laughed, and they laughed, and everyone laughed. And he said, okay, get back to me. And she said, I will. And that's how that ended. But for a very brief moment in this beautiful, honest, transparent banter, you could really see the important questions being asked and the answers not being given when they're clearly answers that need to be given. So that's kind of frustrating. Like Brianna, conjunction, junction, what's your function? Gain of function so I can make it a bioweapon. We talked about it in the 90s. Now we're doing it. 20 years later. I know you think the 90s was just 10 years ago, but it's been a long time. We've come a long way. Conjunction, junction, making a virus and Wuhan. Just really interesting things going on there that we have documentation of it. I mean, I was called crazy back in the way for saying, and again, it's just not going to fly. I won't get into particular. I know I mentioned last night or yesterday some of the Grandview shootings in Kansas City, Missouri, of young people. Minneapolis, Minnesota, continuing to add to that. So many young people getting shot, killed, crossfire, whether it be gang-related violence. It's kind of being swung into Second Amendment political things, but it's really about children not being loved enough at home, and people's weapons in a space of anger and confusion not being managed well enough. all of these things affect us. They absolutely do. So I'm sorry to those people in Minneapolis who we've lost again. 2 more people under the age of 18 to collateral gunfire this weekend. And that just stinks. But positive news. Mr. Cotton, anybody, I don't know if you're a computer person. I don't know if you're an IT nerd. Maybe you're an Angelina Jolie hacker fan. But maybe you're an underdog fan. You like watching the chubby guy that hasn't probably been the most popular dude suddenly have his moment of glory, his moment of fame in the spotlight. And it happened 11 hours ago, give or take. Mr. Cotton there for the very confrontational. It's not the word. What's the C word? Gosh, I haven't had enough coffee. Controversial Arizona audit. Controversial was the word I was stuck on, huh? There in Maricopa, Americanacopia, in Americopia. No, it's Maricopa, Arizona County. An audit is happening about the presidential election and the Dominion voting and the machines that other countries have gone, yeah, those are hackable, so we're not going to use those. And yet we did it anyway. You even have Kamala Harris in 2018 talking about like, we watched manipulation before our very eyes on these machines. It was amazing. Sure it was. And certain thoughts on how they worked and the routers associated to them and what did and did not happen in the particular 2020 election. And Mr. Cotton, this beautiful forensic IT man standing there, and his moment where he's like, well, the issue is that there was going to be documents of this, and this, but that information was lost in the great database loss. And, everyone's like, oh, He's like, but luckily, I'm effing awesome, and I've recovered all of that lost data. Bum, bum, bum. And like, you kind of hear gasps. You hear the room kind of shift. And immediately, I want you to watch. Within an hour, you have Georgia declaring an investigation into their election and auditing their results today. Some people going, oh, get over it. This is it's not about a person or a president. I think that that's very important for some people that want to take the narrative of, oh, my president won and just get over it, or he'll, or this or that, or whatever. It's about the fact that the people in the last 4 positions of president may not have been elected officials after all. And that shouldn't that be a concern to every American? Of course. A secure election, just like secure borders or secure homes, a secure police force. We don't want corruption. We don't want abuse of power. We all agree that that would be bad, and that the human condition under some circumstances does bad things. And we should be able to protect ourselves in these crazy times. And that would mean, at the very least, that when we stand in line and do or don't show our ID to do a very important thing and vote, that this process be able to be validated, that it be not corrupt. At the very least. At the very least. And it's kind of one of those, that's very, very important. So with this situation, it was kind of a continued degrading of that trust in our authority. And even tonight, some of my younger family members, it's so beautiful, nieces and nephews, and they're graduating and going to their academies, their officer academies, and you see people graduating from high school, going into the military or doing their thing. And the president of the United States gave his first graduation commencement today. It's not very long, as his speeches usually are not. If you've not seen it, you should go watch it. I posted it on my Facebook. Do yourself a favor after this. Just go watch, because he calls the graduating class, once they don't laugh at his joke, very dull. And then he kind of asks people to applaud. And it's like a cued thing. It's very difficult to watch. I would encourage you to do it now before we may not have that option. And the whole fact that things be edited within 24 hours should be a concern. Masks is a hot topic. I know a lot of you have emailed me about, please mention the masks going in, going off. Some situations with Fauci and the no reason for variants or post-vaccine issues. People asking me what I think about getting a vaccine. It's important for you to ask your doctor, but also that your doctor or your medical professional knows who you are and that your best interest and your health is of their greatest concern in this equation. That's very, very important. So with that being said, people taking the vaccine just in hopes to no longer have to do this or that, that's not a reason to do anything. That's like bribery and bartering of your liberties. And as the famous quote goes, he who trades his liberties for security or privacies for security, it's been manipulated. Any of it. Don't trade any of it. You deserve neither. The New York Yankees, staff member after staff member, even having been vaccinated, people still being positive. So this is kind of important. It's not something that should be the determining factor of you getting it or not, because obviously some of this isn't factual data and the statistics aren't showing much. We're also seeing a lot of adverse reaction. And it's very important that people understand the Emergency Authorization Act means that the distributors and manufacturers are not liable in any way, shape, or form for any short or long-term adverse reactions or even fatalities that may come to you as a result of your vaccination. I repeat, if you consent to it under the Emergency Authorization Act, the manufacturer and the distributor, person giving it to you, is not liable for any adverse reaction or fatality that you... What? Yeah. Why would you even say that? Anyway, I think that that's important. I think that it's important to mention that if you have not watched some of the issues going back and forth and the bending of politics in some of these spaces, as far as being someone sending mixed signals, Fauci, the science and Rand Paul and some of the exchanges. I love to watch interviews. I love to watch live footage of people speaking to each other. It's important. And some of the, I will say, arguments, regardless of what your personal beliefs are, you watch this and science and Rand Paul have consistently been right. And Fauci, unfortunately, has consistently been inconsistent. And so that is important to mention just in the role and position that he plays. That's important. So the House floor moment today was an en masse moment, drama that ensued. Oh my gosh, they did this, they did that. Hello, Susie. Hello, Brianne. Good evening, Sarah. From Roger Rabbit, which I really like that. It makes me think of the House floor moment, where so basically you have the mask mandates lifted. You have it that if you have been vaccinated, which all of the members have been, that you don't have to have this mask on. And also these are people that are social distance. They are in a place that's heavily sanitized and cleaned, and they're on TV, and they're delegating legal matters that are very important, that we, the people, be able to understand their mouth, be able to understand what they're saying. So I think that that's really important too. And yet Pelosi has said, in this house, my house, under my rules, as long as you live under my house, you'll follow my rules, she says. And that is that you'll wear a mask on your face, or else you get fined $500. I don't care what the CDC says. I don't care what anyone says. You'll do what I say because I said so. And if you do it a second time, it's $2,500. Which is why earlier, when you had Senator John Kennedy saying to the CDC director, Rochelle, I'm confused. And what is it specifically that's different about the House that's not here, where we're all not masked in these committees? This holy temple. It's bizarre. It's a power struggle, I think is what it is. It might be, who knows. But in an equal and opposite space, you have Texas, where governors are fining the schools and organizations who, under the federal mask lift mandate, don't have to lift their mask mandates because of safety of what it could be. And this Texas governor has said, no. Listen, schools and organizations, if you continue to wear masks, if you continue to have third graders running around with little masks on, I'm going to fine you $1,000 for not unmasking. This is really interesting. He's like, it's mine. No, it's mine. Mine. The masks don't fucking matter, which is what the CDC announced and what the documents have announced. And China, even China has said, we don't care. Do what you want. They don't require it. And this is like K-pop country capital of the world, where they're going to wear masks because they've been wearing masks for 10 years anyway, which is why all the conspiracy theorists on TikTok, slow your roll. Well, why were there mask filters before 2020? Dun, dun, dun. Have you ever heard of Sailor Moon? Like, people, calm down. But I will say, if you're interested in this particular space, Texas, uniquely, less than 40% of the population is vaccinated. I think it's 33%, but because there's more than 300,000 undocumented people having come in and over the border since the first of this year, it's hard to say what the exact numbers would be, but no cases of COVID. It's really weird. What else is weird? The thumbnail today for, if you go online, if you're a YouTube watcher or you're a subscriber to any political news, and I try and listen to both sides. I'm listening to CNN. I'm going to listen to Shapiro. I'm going to listen to Skynet. I'm going to check out Forbes. I'm going to check out here. I'm going to call this friend and family member and double check on that. Especially before I go online like this and try and say something dumb out of my mouth. I'm going to hopefully try and listen to a few different sides of the story and really marinate in that Gemini energy we got going on right now. And so with that, anything that's related to politics and legal matters, I do like to listen to Shapiro, even though I know that he is more conservative and right-leaning. His thumbnail today specifically caught my attention because it looks like a reptilian face pulling its skin off, which coming up on June 1st is the perfect timing for such a thing. And it said, masks. So I clicked it and I listened to it. You can too. And it talks about just the pure politics of it and really fear mongering. And, you know, you've got people utilizing this in a space, particularly the example given was the New York Times, some New York Times articles that went out. And the article is about, can I trust my neighbor? A woman getting on the elevator and pressing the close the door, shunning her neighbors because she struggles with an autoimmune disorder. And though she's been vaccinated, she doesn't know if her neighbors have been. You guys, let's not act like people didn't walk around with herpes, gonorrhea, that those things still exist. Viral meningitis, polio. You mean that wasn't eradicated? No, not completely. It's still out there. Cooties, the real myth and fear monger. Like, you guys, the fact that germs, yuck. Do you know what people do licking ice cream in the, come and go at late at night? Come on. COVID is the least of our worries. The demasking, or have they been vaccinated or not? Do they have AIDS? How do you think people felt in that space? Do they have Hep C? Do they have one of any other thousands of transmittable diseases, bacterial or otherwise, MRSA, C. diff? Who knows? Viral, fungal, bacterial. under their acrylic nails that look like Cardi B's, and they've been eating Cheetos all day and can't possibly get all the yuck out of it after they wipe their ass. Who knows? You're worried about whether or not they've been vaccinated from COVID, even though you can still transmit it, be asymptomatic, and be tested positive for it afterwards? Really? If you can't trust your neighbor, it's because you don't know them. To trust means to predict. In neurolinguistic programming, that's something in a therapeutic environment that we're constantly talking about. Trust is not some sacred virginal gift that's damaged by Satan, or that is broken into pieces as you give it to someone like some holy thing, and they smash it to pieces and rob you of your trust, and now you can just never trust anybody ever. No. I don't play the victim game, and I definitely don't go to pity parties. And so this is empowering information. Each and every time somebody lets you down or lifts you up, this is information that helps you predict how they are, what kind of person they are, what they're going to do in the future. If they cheat, they're probably likely to cheat again. If they do this, they're probably likely to do this again. If they do that, they're probably likely to do that again. People are very predictable. And you can absolutely trust people over and 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 over, which is why we've seen Kamala Harris. We've seen Joe Biden. We've seen these politicians in office riding the wave for many years, decades, in fact. We've seen that nothing happens. Here we are in the first 100 days, and it's not a surprise. It's not a surprise. However, not being able to trust your neighbors, guys, it's because you can't see their face. If you can't read their emotions, you don't know if they're smiling at you. If you want to know if you can trust somebody, look at them in the eyes. Look up from your phone. Say hello. Interact. If you don't want to do that, then don't. But it shouldn't be a shunning or an exiling or being rude. That seems to me like just a misuse of a naivety to media, just kind of pushing you around like a pawn because you don't care. And it's unfortunate because the people who do care become collateral damage. And that's why mental illness and suicide rates and all the like, crime, activity, hate, anger, negative emotions, the inability to connect. It starts with unmasking in that space. And now that science supports this particular thing, I know people are nervous, but they don't need to be. The feeling of being nervous is real. And to follow that wormhole, it should be of the authority and of the media that's been influencing and lying to you consistently since 2008, legally. Mr. Jim Jordan, he was unmasked today in a committee. If you'd watched him, he's kind of fun to watch speak because he's very clear. He's very, very direct. And recently, kind of like Mr. John Kennedy, but in a less charming and old Belvedere-looking man way, said straightforward, I demand to know more about the Wuhan and WHO report request. I demand to know about the laboratory here. Again, being met with certain resistance, things that are happening on live television that we need to hold accountable and be waiting with bated breath for these answers to be given. Why there was the passing of the Capitol Committee investigation committee for the insurrection acts on January 6th, not any of the other ones on any of the other days or any of the other stuff that's happened, but that there will be a committee to investigate that, which again, it's cousins reaching around the hand of their cousin, doing an investigation for their cousin's reach around job. And so we can't really expect that there's going to be many answers for that. And that so many political people in their positions that were once Democratic actually shifted their position to Republican because of this particular space. And that's really interesting to see if you go into the headlines, and I'll put in the comments below where you can read up and follow on some of these shifts. And it's been over the clarity and misuse of safety precautions and throwing people under the bus for this. Really, collateral damage of lives, human lives, children, eugenics programs in action, and seeing it play out, which is real. So checking in here on the chat room, and thank you guys so much for joining me. Again, don't forget, let me know where you're at. Check in at paranormalsarah.com. Susie saying, you know what, I'm going to stick to this. I'm going to stand my ground. Ashley, now that Biden is in office, it is, isn't it all about the aliens? This is a really interesting thought, and we're going to go into this too. Maybe a new level of isolation they're trying to use. They kept us locked up for a year, and now our own neighbors are a threat. It's a good tactic. It is actually. It's an old school project, paperclip type MK Ultra KGB tactic of communism, Marxism, the art of war, if you will. It's not new. Psychological warfare, especially combined with biological warfare, once sci-fi, now real, kind of like our cell phones and a lot of the other movements and evolutions of technology. It's a natural sway, and it's not so far-fetched. And you guys, we've come a long way. And so aliens, again, going to be one of those things. The synthetic laboratories doing gain-of-function research, absolutely. And knowing that mass media influences people, that we have patents on keeping ourselves focused and busy and emotionally manipulated by music and different electromagnetic spectrums. This is really, really real. It's not conspiracy theory or strange twilight. It's stuff that's kind of pending in the wings of purgatory, if you will. If you just step out into the gray or into the fringe or into the fray, you'll see it and you'll hear it, and it will come eventually full circle. But these demands on knowing more or learning more about Wuhan are important. And I think it is very important following the She trail, She being one of the virologists that for a very long time has been doing research into SARS and SARS-2 and was one of the people that Fauci worked with. So this is kind of just, it's interesting news, not all new news. But Mr. Jim Jordan, of course, demanding that we are able to be more transparent about it. Again, coming from different directions in the White House and in politicians' spaces. And I'm hoping that we do hear more about that very, very, very soon. But the threat and fear of our neighbors or strangers, that is almost cultural now. This is an interesting thing that was mentioned, because talk about vaccinated or unvaccinated or masked or not masked. Whether or not you are Democratic or Republican, the fear and the fear mongering of whether or not you trust yourself or the authorities around you, whether or not you trust the people around you to be washing their hands or not standing near you too close when they say hello, or hugging when they come in for a distanced greeting. You've not seen each other for some time. Are you going to hug? Are you not? Are you going to shake hands? Are you going to fist bump? Are you going to elbow bump? Are you going to wear a mask? Are you not? There seems to be this space where usually you follow the leader, usually the extrovert, the one standing tall with integrity or the loudest voice is going to spearhead that sociological wave of people. And now we have people doing that in different directions. And so people aren't quite sure where to go or how they feel. And the people who are very confident sometimes are too confident, and that comes off a bit threatening. And when the frequency of influence is stating that those who are defiant are threatening in nature, it's the same stereotype of that Black men are violent or that all men are violent. Yes, men have the Y and the XY, and that the YY is extra masculine, and that, you know, testosterone does create a different feeling. It's actually really cool to talk with men and women about this, like in marital counseling. If you're a woman listening and you've ever had your menstrual cycle, whether or not you've had PMS or pre or post menstrual syndrome, where you have that feeling of cravings, you have rage, you have emotions that you can't seem to keep on hand, you're just not quite sure. What's really interesting is sometimes, most of the time, in fact, when women are struggling with the emotional recourse of like rage, not being the temper, oh, you have PMS, you're acting like a big fat bitch. In fact, they have higher testosterone levels. They actually are the most manly version of themselves, and they're not taking any shit. And you kind of have this more spearheaded, driven yang feeling coursing through your veins, and the lack thereof does the opposite as well. If you have more of hormones in a feminine space, right, estrogen, progesterone even in some ways, then you're going to not always behave in certain ways, but the feelings within you, again, if you've experienced menstrual swings or mood swings as a result of hormones or hyperthyroid disorder, or you've had issues with glands, maybe adrenal glands or pituitary glands, you've experienced what it's like to be not a victim to your hormones, but to know what it's like to be influenced by them and to feel that shift and to not, again, reason or excuse, blame or victim, but to go, oh, I can feel the testosterone in me. I need to be able to take a step out. I need to be able to tag team with my partner. I need to have chocolate or other things to appease my pleasure and rewards space to where I just feel happier and I'm kind of overcompensating and undercompensating for these shifts within me. This is it's interesting that certain people right now are being banned from Twitter for saying that men cannot give birth, and that there seems to be this confusion between biological male and female and the distinct differences and the strengths and weaknesses that they each have and can provide for one another. And as Mary said, pregnancy also, if you go through that hormonal shift in pregnancy, or letdown when breastfeeding, or if you're around other children, screaming empathy and you feel your body relating. These are all mental illness. Illness, of course, is only upon a diagnosis of when it's affecting the functioning, your ability to function for usually 3 to 6 months or longer. If it's a short-term thing, it's usually just a regulation of something environmental or a stimulus of an event happening and you regulating yourself. And that's okay. And that's normal. Something happens, a death, something happens, a car accident, something happens, a pandemic. And so you're stressed. That's pretty normal. To feel sick in an unhealthy world, pretty normal. To be feeling nauseous, dizzy, struggles with your sleep cycle, circadian rhythm, not wanting to eat, or struggling with digestive issues when chemicals are in the air and being pumped into a lot of different areas, and solar flares and magnetism are struggling, and a large part of our population and proximity shedding is a thing that are getting synthetic vaccinations. These things matter. Talk about hormone regulation, people getting the vaccine, whether you want to say it's true or not. Go look up the testimonials of women around women, people exposed to friends or family that have been vaccinated, and how their menstrual cycle has changed. How the birth boom, if you're on birth control and you don't want to have babies because you're on birth control, be careful all of the talks about what's a baby and what's not right now, because that vaccine may or may not disturb your hormones and your ability to ovulate. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Go check that out, because that's a real thing. And these are chemicals. These are certain things. 102, ingredient 102, very, very, very important. So, yeah, keep in mind, this stuff is published articles, not always in America. If you'd like a copy, let me know, paranormalsarah.com. I'll send it to you. But let's keep moving. I've got a whole nother page. Cultural, as far as the masks, are people going to want to just keep it on because it makes them feel safe? That's up to us right now. The unmasking has happened. If you're choosing to keep a mask on, it's because you want to wear a mask. It helps you feel safe. It's like a coddling item. It's like a binky. Do you need that? It is stressful times, and sometimes we do need a comfort item. Go and get a stone, keep it in your pocket, go wear a necklace that you can rub on, or have and a rosary or something. There are certain things provided by religions or therapists that you can get. It doesn't have to be a mask. You might find that Dr. Fauci in his past has actually done some really amazing articles on the black fungus and respiratory pneumonia and long-term issues with mold in the lungs because of long-term mask wearing and the inability to keep it clean, so that actually killed more people in some of the epidemics than the actual respiratory illness. Really? Yeah, really. You can't make this up. You couldn't write this on the Truman Show if you tried. Teachers Union. Are anybody of you here? I've got a lot of friends and family who are teachers. I love the teachers. The teachers of my sons, we've been very blessed each and every year. We get great teachers, Cub Scout leaders, teachers in our life. My cousin Amy, she's a teacher. Friends that I went to high school with, teachers here, teachers there, teachers everywhere. But are they in a teachers union? Probably. A lot of it is kind of like if you're in like liberal arts and you want to be a famous actor, well, you've got to be in SAG. You mean FAG, the Film Actors Guild by Matt Damon? No, it's SAG, the Screen Actors Guild. And it probably still is Matt Damon. And anyway, and you really don't have a choice. If you want to be hired for that job, if you want to be hired, you even look at the audition, it says SAG. And you're like, but I'm not in the union yet because I don't have my 200 hours or the $500 to pay to be in your cool club. And they go, sorry, figure it out. So sometimes you just have to be in the union. It's not like it's a choice. And if you're a part of that profession, you're a part of that union. And this is your direct deposit form. This is your W-2. This is your not going to do this while you're working here. Oh, and this is there's that. Your union form. And you're in the union now. And that's just how it goes. So let me know if you're in a union by choice, if you like your union. Let me know what you think about unions. My dad was a union member his whole life, a millwright. And so obviously I'm a little biased. I've been in a union myself and different unions, and they've run differently. How do you feel about caste systems? Do you think they're similar or the same? Because lately, and as far as like certain references, the teachers union was asked as a reference for the CDC, actually, for teaching methods as how to culturally infect certain demographics. And unions and science edits and lack of sources seem to be consistent in teaching today, whether it be critical race theory or teachers leaving left and right, not being able to have a choice in curriculum. And there's just some really interesting things going on in that. And I'm wondering how indoctrinated or how much of a choice you find yourself having in your skilled profession and what that profession might be. So feel free to share that if you want in the chat room below, or feel free to private message me or get a hold of me at paranormalsarah.com. Is that how his voice gets so raspy? Once I started the new MS meds, I will have to pretty much stay in my house for a couple months. I don't know whether or not I should even wear a mask when I go out. Now, see, if you're immunocompromised, gosh, a mask is a good idea anyway. Washing your hands is a good idea anyway. If you're concerned about getting any kind of a virus, illness, bacterial, viral, or otherwise, that could put your harm or your health, in danger, that's something that, you want to do. Sometimes when like going to a mask or traveling, I would wear a mask anyway, especially like internationally, because you just don't know what you might pick up or get. If you're going to like a village off in the indigenous somewhere, you as the white person coming in, right? We don't want to be being a carrier either. And so if you are going to be immunocompromised, taking all precautions is important, but that's not always necessarily getting a vaccination. In fact, sometimes they say if you are immunocompromised because of a health issue, you shouldn't get a vaccination because your histamines will be high and a myriad of other reasons. You could have a reaction. It could be interfering with your medication, all sorts of things. So we wish you well in that, by the way, and just, take your own individual health into account and look at things in that way. But if you are, or someone again, is in relative to a union, let me know. Your father worked for the Teamsters Union for 40 years. It's always been amazing for him. So my dad loved the union. I have had pros and cons. So I'll just say that. But I want to know your experiences. So before I say anything, you guys share that with me. So here we are in the last 10 minutes, and I have a whole page. So let me just see if I can get through this. The Ellen DeGeneres and Chrissy Teigen, they've been cast aside. No one cares about them anymore, I guess. Something to mention, and I don't ever want to influence the race argument because I think it's a flimflammery. I think it's a waste of breath. However, when certain things are done in a way that's so blatantly racist, I do hold people accountable. And I don't like race hustlers. I think it's a shame. And I do my Game of Thrones shame moment. Shame. Shame. The Chicago mayor, Lori Lightfoot, also known as Beetlejuice. Don't say that, Sarah. That's mean. Well, I'm mad. You're right, though. It is mean. Chicago mayor, Lori Lightfoot, declares interviews are now only going to be given to Black and brown people. Fuck you, Asians. Oh, and white people. What? Yeah. Talk about a violation of just discrimination 101. You can't say that. You can't do that. That's not okay. That's racist and rude. And you're an elected official. What? Get her out of here. Chicago, you've been going down the shitter for too long. Look at the people on the top of this mountain. Kick them out. I'm not from Illinois. I don't live near Chicago. In Chicago, I know some friends in Chicago. But what the heck? What the heck? What the hell? What the hell? You don't do that. Sorry, guys. From here on out, I'm only giving interviews to reptilians. Sorry, guys. I'm only giving interviews to Black people. What? I mean, you can if you're a business. I suppose you can openly discriminate and then take every precaution and consequence thereafter. But mayor of Chicago? I mean, if you live anywhere near there, send this biatch a letter. That's not okay. That's not cool. That's not cool. Anyway, Andrew Brown Jr., this was big news. And, you know, the Black and Blue book, New York Times bestseller, Officer Tatum, he was an officer that worked on SWAT. So being that this was a situation, you know, it seems like every week, every month, there is an opportunity for the media to kind of latch on to something. And we do have the Andrew Brown Jr. case, which is sad. Anytime anybody dies, it's sad. That's sad. That's somebody's brother or mother or father or daughter or, you know, it's somebody's someone. Hopefully. A lot of times in criminal cases, it's not anybody's anyone, which is why that they've resorted to criminal behavior and mass drug abuse. They're self-medicating and they're sad and they don't give a shit, which is why they go flying down the highway and put numerous people in danger, like you saw today on the California roadway. But this was last month in North Carolina, and they released the body cam, and it was announced. The DA was like, "Yeah, well, no, we're not prosecuting because watch the body cam footage," and people just what? But a Black man was shot and died at the hands of police. It's murder. Murder, I say. No, it was actually a drug warrant being executed. The drug criminal under the influence of drugs, with drugs, selling, intent to distribute drugs, drug abuser, drug, evidence of drugs, criminal, breaking the law. And he runs out of his house. And people with their guns, SWAT team, stop, stop, you're under arrest. Stop, 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 stop. He gets in his car. He GTAs that right out of his driveway. Officers sprinkled in the lawn. He don't give an F. He pow, pow, taking out officers. They shot and killed him. They shot better than stormtroopers. He died. That was sad. Luckily, no one else got hurt. And the DA says they're not going to prosecute and waste any taxpayers' money on this. And people are going to riot. And they're not upset. Or they are upset. They don't know. They're not quite sure if they're upset or not. But if you're anywhere over there in that area, you know, that's news headlines for you. And guys, I mean, we hate to say that there's going to be a certain number of people who unfortunately die either by illness or old age or refusal to listen and follow directions by somebody on the other end holding a gun. It happens, and we do not live in an utopia. Not quite yet. Bombs in the Middle East, more than 3,000. Exchanged. In the Floyd Square, there's Palestinian flags flying. of course, Ben Shapiro again on his news today, talking very well about Jewish holidays, particular holidays happening in the last few days, ceasefires and non-ceasefires, how our president has been acting in this space where it's been more about selling weapons and not getting caught selling weapons than it has been about a real ceasefire, which is kind of sad, but again, business as usual for America. And whether or not a country has a duty to its people. So you guys, I want you to think about that. Do you feel like if another country were to start bombing us, if there were to be some terrorist action, whether it be from within inside of our own country or not, which many people walk around afraid thinking if we have ISIS within our country or we have, some type of an infiltration within our country, Chinese communist agents, spies, which in fact, maybe we do. Maybe we do have the KKK. Maybe there are a select few, small minority of people, Antifa, BLM, who knows what they want to call themselves with their little flag, their little anagram, and they're mixed in and integrated and sprinkled in really, 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 really good, like the Hamas is in Palestine. And they've got certain places that they gather and certain news headquarters that they stay in and certain things that they're doing that are strategic, that makes sense. If you've played like Risk or any other of those childhood games, you understand how to defend, how to take action politically and kind of, for your country and your citizens. And doesn't a country have that duty to protect its citizens if it's being bombed, if it's being under attack? And so there are certain people, I think, stepping into space saying, well, this is these people and this and that and that. And really, unless we're there, unless we know the details of it, it's really hard to say for certain what's going on. But we do know with a certain amount of certainty that a lot of people are dying, collateral damage, and that also this seems to be happening. It's a continued problem over and over and over. It hasn't happened in the last 4 years previous to this, but it is now something that is back, and it's not new. Some conspiracy theorists are like, what are they protected? What holy temples are going on there in Jerusalem that suddenly is so important now? And the da-da-da-da. But really, I think before we want to cast judgment, we have to say, well, doesn't any government have the right and the obligation and duty to defend its citizens if they know that they're under attack, which both sides seem to be at this point under a certain amount of attack. So action is going to be taken. And I don't know if a ceasefire is going to happen. It doesn't seem like Biden is doing much of anything other than saying that the U.S. Coast Guard's graduating class is dull. That really was sad. But the last 3 things I'll leave you with, guys, as we finish up here in the hour of no man's land. And tomorrow, I might do it at noon or at night. I can't quite decide because I know that so many of you work and you want to be able to join me live. And I want you to be able to join me live. So let me know your thoughts if you'd rather me shift to the evening or not. Your opinion really does matter. So let me know. But 3 things I want to leave you with. 1, if you are a fan of Obama, and he is someone who I love to watch speak, talk about funny, candid, a good impromptu speaker, didn't even need a teleprompter, someone that can speak really well under fire and be very charming. Trump is not charming. Saying that you're going to grab somebody by the pussy, even to your friends in the locker room, is not charming. I hardly doubt, even in the locker room, smoking joints in college, did Obama say such things. It's just a different space. And he was charming to listen to, part of the irony with his presidency. And just recently in an interview, when asked about what to expect from the UFO documents to be released on June 1st, what did he have to think about all of the stuff with the Navy and the UFO? And he said, well, I can't, there's a lot I can't say, but what I can say is that there is evidence. And like, he goes on this beautiful, charming, flim-flammery discussion of how there's aliens and UFOs and that we're going to be hearing more about it and that he really can't say anything, but he can say just enough. And it's really, really interesting to see Obama, who's otherwise kind of scattered around this topic, addressing it quite forwardly. And the slow, like UFOs and aliens, guys, until last year, this would have been something that people called you crazy. Trust me, I know. And now you could be, watching the movie Paul and be right along with any other average American or otherwise that now this means that the popular, organized, formal religions are going to have to address species other than humans. that we have to either utilize the Gnostic scriptures, and Pope Francis better start getting those Gnostic Coptic sea scrolls out and start breaking out the Elohim. Otherwise, the Bible doesn't include such things. Major shifts are going to happen, and that are going to happen to people's belief systems and value structures, and in a space where they've been fear-mongered for over 2 years and are already unsure and uncertain of certain authorities. This puts you in a very susceptible, highly suggestive space. It puts you in a very vulnerable space as an interrogator. This is maybe where we want you. Of course, we don't want to manipulate any of your mental states, but this is a traumatic space if you're vulnerable. And so this is also not ethical. This is something that is riding a very, 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 very thin line. So Alien Jesus is coming on June 1st. Some people also talking about, and I would love your thoughts on this, especially if you're someone joining us over the pond, about the Queen possibly having recently passed away, the loss of her prince, having croaked herself at 94, and that she's no longer alive. But the reason that we have not heard about it, nor have we seen it in the news, but instead you're seeing like all the YouTube and, oh, look at Meghan and Harry, look at William and Kate, and oh, look over here, and that we've not seen anything from the Queen, is because Joseph Gregory Hallett and certain royal families from Spain making claim to the royal crown, and documents being filed making stake to the royal crown. Man, as I've told you guys before, I'm not terribly interested in monarchies. Here in America, I don't care that Harry and Meghan or whoever now live in California and think that they're going to be the next whomever. It really doesn't interest me. However, this conspiracy theory is interesting. It's really weird. And Joseph Gregory Hallett, and this stuff shows up in the Baron Trump series of books and weird time traveling spaces. Really weird. And so I'm wondering what you know. Do you know the Queen? Have you seen her lately? What conspiracy might this be related to that you know about? And do you give any credence at all? Do you think there's anything to this? And then lastly, something interesting. And so for Paul, who sent me this email and wanted me to mention this, the 124 or more, and more was put in, I can almost certainly say it is more than that, retired veterans sending a declaration to the White House and all major news platforms. Some of them played it, some of them didn't. And they're known as the Flag Officers for America. And that the Flag Officers for America, Google it if you're interested in it, and see what they're doing, because they're making certain declarations to the White House as far as saying that positions of people in power right now are actually guilty of treason, and that certain acts need to be put in. But what's most important is that this is the first time that we have had veterans, huge number, hundreds, it's not 124, it's far more than that. Go look at it. You can look at it yourself. Of people, active, living military service members who are struggling to serve the commander-in-chief or people in power that they are underneath because of certain indoctrinations or ethical issues that they are facing. So if you've been struggling with that yourself, you're not alone. That seems to be a collective consciousness thing as far as what's going on. But what is also unique and exciting is that people are standing up to it and saying, you know what, I don't feel okay. They're standing up and saying, this isn't cool, and I'm going to do something about it. The time to take action. That you've listened, you've heard, you've seen enough, and that now is the time. And indeed, now is the time, as we see with the bombs in the Middle East and issues with China and the declarations of demands on behalf of politicians and our own government saying, we need to know, we demand to know. And after seeing the huffs and haws and sighs, after Mr. Cotton, the forensic IT person, said that, listen, I have reclaimed all of the otherwise said deleted data from the databases, and I actually have some information that this investigation needs for the audit. And that, guys, I expect to wake up tomorrow on Thursday with some really interesting news headlines as we inch one day closer to June 1st, expecting to see UFOs and aliens. And as we said last night on the astrological show, more crazy severe weather. Is it HOP? No, it's probably going to be the big shift into Aquarius and the Pluto shifts of life change and transformation. Mother Earth is doing the same things. And these solar flares are really making a big impact on not just our emotions, but our mental health and our physical health, and also the electronics in and around our lives. So that's going to be greatly influential to just our life as we know it, guys. Technology is a big part of what we do on a daily basis. So take some time to breathe. Take some time to have a tornado or a wild weather plan. Have a plan B, C, or D so that you can sleep a little easier. Take no more than 2 milligrams of melatonin if you're not finding that to disagree with any other medications. And before bed, just, listen to the rain, calm your energy, and look forward to tomorrow. If anything else, that's what's nice about doing a night show. So you guys, I hope you have a wonderful evening. And I'm so thankful that you guys joined me. I'm glad to have my internet back. I'm sorry that my dandelion recipe offended someone so greatly. And I'll try, I'm probably still going to do everything I still do. No worries. But anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow here on YouTube, here on the social media. Be sure and follow me at paranormalsarah.com. And you guys let me know what you'd like to talk about, what you'd like to cover, and be safe out there. For those of us who are going through crazy weather, keep safe. Let me know how you're doing. And I will see you tomorrow here on No Man's Land, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. And until